Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump have their first phone call since American tariffs were launched. Plus, some relief for the auto industry tonight. We have everything you need to know about day 2 of this trade war.
Thousands of families could be left stranded right before March break as city workers prepare to walk off the job.
And a large fire destroys 6 townhomes in Toronto's Yorkville neighborhood. More on the significant dollar value loss.
This is Live at 5. Hello, I'm Arda Zakarian.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Live at 5. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump spoke today for the first time since tariffs were implemented on both sides of the border.
The Prime Minister offering a few details about the phone call, but Trump did not hold back. Here's what he said about the call on Truth Social. Justin Trudeau of Canada called me to ask what could be done about the tariffs. I told him that many people have died from fentanyl that came through the borders of Canada and Mexico, and nothing has convinced me that it has stopped. He said that it's gotten better, but I said that's not good enough. The call ended in a somewhat friendly manner.
The president goes on to say, for anyone who is interested, I also told Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada that he largely caused the problems we have with them because of his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of fentanyl and illegal aliens to pour into the United States. These policies are responsible for the death of many. Now, data shows less than 1% of fentanyl that enters the United States actually comes from Canada.
Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors are getting a 1-month exemption from tariffs in a move the Trump administration hopes will prompt the manufacturers to shift more business in the United States.
CP24's Lindsay Biscaya joins us live with the latest on this relief for the auto industry, but not everybody's receiving this relief, Lindsay.
No, it's really just those 3 big companies that you two mentioned right off the top, Ford, Stellantis, and GM, and it's only for a month, so it is a little sliver of good news, but it's just for a short period of time. So basically, for these 3 companies, which had been appealing for a little bit of relief from these tariffs, now they did get it for a month, they'll still remain under that free trade agreement that Trump himself actually helped to negotiate back in his first term in office. So under that free trade agreement, basically for cars that are made in North America, as long as certain parts of cars are made in certain parts of the country, so Canada, U.S., and Mexico, then they can qualify for duty-free trade. And so that's going to continue for the time being for these 3 companies. But then those tariffs, as of today, will take effect on April 2nd instead. So a little bit of short-term relief. And we're getting a lot of reaction today, as you can imagine, on both sides of the border to this little bit of relief. We also heard, of course, there's operations for GM, Stellantis, and Ford in Ontario. And so we did hear from Ontario Premier Doug Ford about this today. Take a listen.
I think the American people are our closest allies. They're voicing their opinion. They're frustrated. The CEOs, the market tanked. That's what really caught his attention. I think the electricity definitely caught the world's attention, not just down there, but just being persistent and all the premiers really going down there and collaborating with their counterparts south of the border, as we have been doing. And I have endless calls right now that I have to follow up with the governors and some Congress people. But the deal is 0 tariffs. We aren't going to budge.
The Canadians build cars. The Mexicans build cars. This is an April 2nd comment. Why are our Michigan jobs in Canada? Why are our Michigan jobs in Canada? And that's what the president's going to address. He's going to say, come on back. Come on back. We're going to build Michigan. We're going to build Ohio. Here we come. Here comes America under Donald Trump.
So we heard there Howard Lutnick continuing to talk about auto industries moving all their operations to the U.S. so that cars are solely made out of the U.S. That's not as simple as some may make it sound, Arda and Lena. And we have heard from Flavio Volpe, the Automotive Parts Manufacturer Association spokesperson, who was really talking today about just how complex that would be, not only for each country involved in auto manufacturing, but also for the companies themselves. You're talking about GM, Ford, and Stellantis. Here's what Volpe had to say.
You're on an extended period where you don't have product to sell against that expense, and you have multiple plants where you want to do this. So these things aren't going to happen or be able to happen concurrently. They'd have to happen consecutively. So he's talking about a 10, 15-year rebuild and turn of the industry at a time when it's under its greatest attack ever by the Chinese. He will bankrupt one of those American car companies.
So, as you heard there, not good news for the one of those American car companies that would maybe be subjected to this. Now, things are moving really fast here, Arda and Lena. There are officials reporting that Trudeau and Trump are continuing to talk throughout today. So there is a chance that we could see further developments, further changes. It seems as though things are changing as hour by hour. So we'll have to wait and see what happens next. But that's the latest. Back to you.
Every day there's something new. Thank you so much for this, Lindsay. We appreciate it. Greenland's prime minister says the territory is not for sale and cannot be taken.
The remark is in response to U.S. President Donald Trump saying yesterday that his country will acquire the semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, quote, one way or another, end quote. Greenland will hold a parliamentary election next week, and Trump's comments have ignited unprecedented interest in full independence from Denmark, which has become a key issue during the campaign.
Mexico says it may consider shifting trade alliances and look into Canada after being hit with U.S. tariffs.
The Mexican economy is also vulnerable to a trade war, with one report estimating it could lead to export losses of as much as $42 billion and a 4% hit to GDP. Mexico's president is set to discuss the tariffs with President Trump tomorrow, but says if the duties remain in place, her country will reach out to Canada and other nations. She described this as a definitive moment for Mexico and said the government may seek other trade partners.
It appears Canadians are rethinking their plans to head south of the border amid trade tensions with the U.S. and a weak loonie.
Flight Centre Travel Group says trips to American cities in February fell 40% compared with a year ago. It is also reporting 1 in 5 customers canceled their travel plans to the States over the past 3 months. Air Canada is reducing flights to Florida, Las Vegas, and Arizona this month, while WestJet says it's seen a shift from bookings to the U.S. to sunny destinations like Mexico and the Caribbean instead.
We remain under a special weather statement because of the rain and melting snow.
Environment Canada says the frozen ground has a reduced ability to absorb all the rain, which could total between 15 and 25 millimeters through this evening. A live shot of the many waterways in the city tonight. The rain is expected to change to snow tonight into tomorrow morning as the temperature falls and winds increase.
The Humber River is a specific area of concern for flooding, according to the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. The river is partly ice covered. The Conservation Authority has also issued a flood outlook for the Don River and Duffins Creek watersheds. Ice jams are also possible, which could lead to localized flooding in low-lying areas.
And the Toronto Police Marine Unit is reminding people to keep away from ice on open bodies of water as significant rainfall moves across the province. It says all ice is unsafe, especially at this time of year. The unit is also asking parents to explain the dangers to their children.
Let's take a look at the roads right now because it's rush hour. Adjoa, how's everything looking?
Oh, it is moving very, very slowly, Arda. And, you know, we have a busy go on the westbound 401. If you're headed westbound, that delays start pretty much from Mavis, and then they do continue out towards about Mississauga Road. This is where you're running into a collision in the express that does have the HOV as well, has the left shoulder occupied. Further west, problems still lingering into Milton on the 401 westbound. Rain is subsiding, but it's still very foggy, so visibility reduced. But this is the 401 westbound, just as you make your run the approach to Highway 25. Stalled vehicle blocking the right lane and shoulder. No issues, but still very busy northbound 410 into Brampton, and also looking at slow pockets and wet pockets on the northbound DVP. Very busy approaching Bayview Bloor. Continues slow up to the 401. If your travels take you into the downtown core, just a reminder, Bay not accessible between Yorkville and Davenport. It is for an ongoing fire investigation. I'll send it back to you both.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Adjoa, it's 5:09, 7 degrees, and you're watching Live at 5.
6 townhomes under construction in Yorkville have been badly damaged by a massive fire. We'll get a live update from the scene near Bay and Davenport coming up.
Welcome back. An investigation is underway after a fire destroyed 6 townhomes under construction near Bay Street and Davenport Road.
CP24 Steve Ryan joins us live from the scene on Scholar Street with the latest details. Steve, we know this happened early this morning. What's the condition like now?
Well, it's still a very active scene, Arda. Toronto Fire were here at 4:30 this morning. What started out as one townhome on fire here on Scholar Street in Yorkville resulted in 6 townhomes, newly built buildings being engulfed by flames. Cars that were parked on Scholar Street near the fire were affected as well. Now, Toronto Fire were able to put the fire out, and they did some good work preventing this fire from spreading even further when you consider all of the buildings here are mostly attached. So they did some good work putting out the fire and preventing any further damage. Now, as a result of the enormous damage that was caused, the financial loss, it's most likely going to be the mandate of the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office. That is part of their mandate anytime there is substantial financial loss as a result of a fire. So they would be the ones on scene here looking at the investigation with regards to the cause, circumstances, and origin of this fire, and they will have the final report with regards to what transpired here that led to these 6 buildings being set on fire. Here is more from the Deputy Fire Chief, who we spoke with earlier on today, and the owner of one of the buildings that was on fire as well. Listen to both.
These are older buildings. A lot of these are century homes that have been renovated into businesses. And with that, they've got there's voids with new construction, and the fire gets trapped in some of those voids, and we can't hit it from the exterior because it's become a defensive firefight. So it has been, there is some fire still active in some of the parts of the buildings where we can't access right now, but we have contained it, so it's not going to get any bigger.
It was very, very, very early. It was 4 o'clock in the morning when we smelled smoke. Yeah. And because it's really a commercial area, there are not that many residents on Scholar. So when we went to the front of the building, we saw the flames. It was just horrendous. And they saw that there was residents. We own the building. And they beckoned us to come out quickly. So we did, but the overhead wires were already sparking. And the firemen and the police were already backing away and anxious to get residents all out.
You can still smell the smoke in the air, and from where I'm standing right now, it appears as though there are engineers on scene looking at the structural integrity of all 6 of those buildings that were incredibly damaged by this terrible fire. We'll send it back to the desk.
All right, Steve Ryan, live in Yorkville for us tonight. Thank you for this, Steve. Well, police are investigating a pair of tow truck-related shootings.
The one shooting happened just before 10 o'clock last night. 2 people were shot at a tow yard on Glen Scarlett Road near Weston Road and St. Clair. They were taken to hospital with serious injuries. The suspects fled the area in a dark sedan.
An hour later, police say a tow truck driver was shot at a gas station near Warden and Lawrence. The victim was rushed to hospital with serious injuries. Police say the suspects fled the scene in a vehicle. An employee at the gas station assisted the victim.
He was washing his truck in the base, and I think they came out of nowhere, tried to attack him. When he was running, they shot him in the back. I think that happened. Yeah, there was few rounds. Luckily, he only been shot once. I asked him, who shot you? Why did they shot you? He said he don't know anything. He don't know who shot him. He don't know why he shot him.
It's unclear whether the shootings are related. Anyone with information is asked to contact police.
Well, a Toronto teacher has been stripped of his license after inappropriate contact with a student.
The Ontario College of Teachers says David Field pleaded no contest to allegations that he kissed a student and engaged in inappropriate touching and conversations with other female students. Field was accused of exchanging text messages of a sexual nature with a student. Field was previously charged by Toronto police in 2020 with 2 counts of sexual assault and 2 counts of sexual exploitation, but those charges were stayed. He has worked at Rosedale Heights School of the Arts, Don Mills Collegiate, and George Vanier Secondary School.
And Peel police, they're investigating an alleged sexual assault involving former OHL players over a decade ago. A woman claims that in 2014, she was invited over by a Mississauga Steelheads player she had been in a consensual relationship with. She says when she arrived, she was sexually assaulted by 8 team members over the span of 90 minutes. She first reported the incident to police last year. The Steelheads moved to Brampton in June of 2024. Spokespeople for the team and the OHL have not responded to requests for comment.
Toronto Police kicked off Fraud Prevention Month this morning by highlighting the main scams targeting residents of our city.
Last year, nearly 17,000 fraud incidents were reported to police, working out to losses of over $368 million. But police believe fraud is vastly underreported, and the real numbers of scams likely 10 to 20 times higher. The most destructive ones are online investment scams, account takeovers, confidence scams, crypto fraud, and identity theft. Toronto police say anybody can be a victim.
Scammers are posing as legitimate investment firms, promising high returns with little to no risk. The online investment scam often begins as a romance scam, initiating contact through phishing texts and emails, creating fake profiles on dating sites or social media, and then building trust and fostering relationships over weeks or even months. Once trust is established, the scammers subtly introduce an investment opportunity. Victims, enticed by the lure of financial gains, end up transferring funds to the scammers.
Bottom line, fraud is a huge issue in Canada. Like was just mentioned, in Toronto alone, over $368 million was lost. $638 million was reported lost to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre in 2024. And again, that's estimating that, it's only the tip of the iceberg. We estimate that only 5 to 10% of victims report to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So our goal is to really spread awareness and, encourage reporting where we can.
This year, the Bureau's theme is Spotting the New Face of Fraud, and it will highlight impersonation scams, including fake websites, AI-generated fraud, and deceptive telemarketing scams. As technologies streamline our lives, fraudsters are targeting Canadians with increasingly sophisticated schemes.
The goal of Fraud Prevention Week is to promote the 3 R's, recognize scams, reject them, and report them.
You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24. We'll take a quick break now. And when we come back,
nearly 30,000 of the city's inside workers will go on strike on Monday morning if a deal isn't reached by then. We'll hear from both sides coming right up. Welcome back. The union representing thousands of City of Toronto workers is warning its members will go on strike Monday if a deal isn't reached by then. And the city says it's already tabled its final offer.
For the latest on negotiations, let's go live to CP24's Beatrice Vaisman. A lot of families, parents specifically, are watching this real closely.
And the reason why, Lena and Arda, is because next week is March break. There are 4,800 children enrolled in Camp TO programs all across the city, including at this community center here in the Trinity Bellwoods area. If these outside workers, QP Local 79 workers, 27,000 of them do go on strike next week, well, that would mean that all of the camps will be canceled. Parents will get their money back, but certainly they'll be left with some headaches as to what to do with their kids over the duration of March break. In addition to that, 39 city-run daycares are also going to be shut down. The inside workers are going to be in a legal strike position as of 12:01 a.m. on Saturday. The union, though, saying it's going to extend that deadline to 12:01 Monday. They say that they want to keep talking, but the union president saying today that she wants to see the city, quote, get serious at the bargaining table. The city, meantime, feeling it's though it's tabled a fair final offer. Here's what we heard both from the QP president along with, you'll hear, city manager Paul Johnson.
We are here today because the City of Toronto's bargaining team has not taken negotiations seriously. Instead, they are playing games with the livelihoods of 30,000 frontline workers and the vital services that the residents of Toronto rely on. The city has used delay tactics and a clear lack of care in their approach to bargaining.
I know that the conversation has been that, these members were working under a collective agreement that took us through some of the highest inflation rates that we've seen in quite some time. And our offer reflects that there is an acknowledgement that we are not simply basing this agreement on what the current inflation is. We're balancing what members have gone through over the last couple of years, what all Torontonians have gone through over the last few years, and trying to balance that out as well.
The two sides have been bargaining since December, Lena and Arda. The union saying that its workers can't afford to live in the city that they serve. As for what the city is offering, 14.65% increase in wages over the course of the next 4 years. Again, bargaining will continue right up until that deadline. Back to you.
Thanks, Beatrice. We're going to take it live now to Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Mélanie Joly. She is speaking to reporters amid the ongoing trade war with the U.S. Let's listen in live.
On doit continuer à renforcer la frontière. On doit continuer à travailler ensemble pour sauver des vies liées à ce fléau qui est le fentanyl. Mais fondamentalement, ce qu'on pense que le président veut, c'est beaucoup plus large que la question ultimement du fentanyl. C'est de nous affaiblir et éventuellement, une fois qu'il nous aura affaiblis, de facto pouvoir nous annexer. C'est ce qu'il a déjà mentionné par le passé. Donc, basé là-dessus, notre objectif est de trouver des solutions diplomatiques. Et en tant que chef de la diplomatie, je vais continuer à le faire. Mais en même temps, on va continuer à défendre nos intérêts, puis on a les yeux très grands ouverts. So, of course, frustrations. That we think that these tariffs are completely unjustified and unjustifiable. These tariffs stem from a presidential executive order linked to the fact that there's a national security crisis at the border linked to fentanyl. And we know that this is a bogus argument. This is not true, particularly when it comes to the northern border. So, based on that, we will continue, of course, to engage on the border, make sure that we can save lives against fentanyl and the scourge of fentanyl. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we stand strong and we'll never negotiate against ourselves. And I've said that many times, and I'll continue to say that. And as Canada's top diplomat, my job is, of course, to find a solution that is anchored in principles and diplomacy. But we need to make sure that there's more trust and much more predictability coming from the other side. Mm-hmm. But that's been a challenge. So the fact that the goalpost seems to change many times and that many other issues that are not linked to trade have been put on the table is definitely a challenge. And so that's why when we negotiate, we're not only looking at the issue of the border, we're not only looking at the issue of trade, we want to make sure that we bring back things much more into a box where we ultimately can be in a much more stable relationship. There's too much unpredictability and chaos coming out of the White House right now. Essentiellement, j'ai déjà un petit peu répondu à cette question-là en français, mais ce que je pourrais vous dire, c'est que notre objectif, c'est d'avoir une entente qui protège les emplois au Canada, qui fait en sorte justement qu'on peut avoir une frontière qui est sécuritaire ensemble. We think that these tariffs are completely unjustified and unjustifiable. These tariffs stem from a president.
All right, we've been listening to Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly speak to reporters talking about Donald Trump's claims that tremendous amounts of fentanyl cross the border into the U.S. She calls that a bogus argument and says these tariffs are unjustified. We're going to have more on this war. Our coverage continues right after this. You're watching Live at 5. Stay with us.
Make sure that we can save lives.
Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump have their first phone call since the American tariffs were launched. Plus, some relief for the auto industry tonight. We have everything you need to know about day 2 of the trade war.
And thousands of families could be left stranded right before March break as city workers prepare to walk off the job. We're going to hear from both sides tonight.
A large fire destroys 6 townhomes in Toronto's Yorkville neighborhood. More on the significant dollar value loss.
This is Live at 5. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Lena Latifat.
And I'm Arda Zakarian. Welcome to Live at 5. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly is addressing the media amid the ongoing trade war with the U.S. Let's take you there live.
Il va y avoir un nouveau leader du Parti libéral qui va être élu dimanche. Everything that we've done on the military side, but also on the financial side, which has helped Ukraine to build its l'évidence. Merci. Production lines and its own capacity to be able to win on the battlefield. We are
just listening in live there to Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Mélanie Joly, who calls Donald Trump's tariffs unjustified. She also called them bogus. And she, of course, continues to fight for Canada, Ottawa responding with retaliatory tariffs. Let's stay with this trade war because Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump, they spoke today for the very first time since these tariffs were implemented on both sides of the border.
The Prime Minister offering few details about the phone call, but Trump did not hold back. Here's what he said about the call on Truth Social. Justin Trudeau of Canada called me to ask what could be done about the tariffs. I told him that many people have died from fentanyl that came through the borders of Canada and Mexico, and nothing has convinced me that it has stopped. He said it's gotten better, but I said that's not good enough. The call ended in a somewhat friendly manner.
And he went on to say, for anyone who is interested, I also told Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada that he largely caused the problems we have with them because of his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of fentanyl and illegal aliens to pour into the U.S. These policies are responsible for the death of many people. Mélanie Joly was just talking about these unfounded claims. Let's talk about the data because it shows less than 1% of fentanyl that enters the United States actually comes from Canada.
And Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors are getting a 1-month exemption from tariffs in a move the Trump administration hopes will prompt the manufacturers to shift more business in the United States.
CP24's Lindsay Biscaya joins us live with the latest details. Lindsay.
Yeah, and important to note, Arda and Lena, that these three big automakers all have operations in Ontario, too. So we'll show you in just a moment what Premier Doug Ford is saying to this. But basically, for the next month or so, it's good news for Ford, GM, and Stellantis because they're going to remain under what was the free trade agreement. That's something that Donald Trump himself helped to negotiate in his last term in office. So it basically means for any cars that are made in North America, whether certain parts are made, depending on which parts of a car are made in certain parts of the three countries, if that all adds up under the regulations and the rules of the free trade agreement, then the cars and the companies would qualify for basically free trade between Canada, U.S., and Mexico. So that's going to remain for another month. But then apparently on April 2nd, those tariffs are set to kick in for these three big automakers as well. So really just some temporary relief here and also a lot of talk of auto manufacturers moving all of their operations out of Canada and Mexico and into the U.S. so that everything is made in the U.S. That is pretty complex as well. So as I mentioned off the top, we did hear from Premier Doug Ford today. He's also making his rounds in the U.S. media, talking about these tariffs and what he plans to do as Premier of Ontario. Here's more from him.
We hear all the negotiations. I understand that the Prime Minister spoke to the President this morning. I spoke to the Prime Minister earlier. We're on the same page, zero tariffs, and we are not going to budge. We aren't going to buckle down. Let's move forward to the USMCA deal or CUSMA deal or NAFTA, whatever you want to call it, and let's start moving forward. But we will not budge, zero tariffs, and that's it.
So still some stubbornness on both sides of the border because we know that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was speaking with Donald Trump today. It sounds as though both sides were really not willing to budge too much. Just on the auto manufacturer part again, Arda and Lena, we've been hearing from auto insiders of the industry, including Flavia Volpe from the Automated Parts Manufacturers Association, who was talking about how complex this is, particularly moving operations down to the U.S. and really what all of this is going to mean when these tariffs do kick in for these three big auto manufacturers. Here's more on what he had to say.
The clarity we're looking for here, of course, is he met with the Detroit Three, but does that apply to every car made in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico by all of the automakers? We don't know yet. We're looking for clarity there. And the assumption, of course, that it includes parts because there is no way to audit for compliance if you don't know where the parts come from. And so, round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody knows.
And that really seems to be the theme here over the last couple of days, Arda and Lena, is that really nobody knows what's going to happen next. We know, or officials are at least saying, that Trudeau and Trump are continuing to talk today. So we could actually have more developments before today ends. And really, there's a month still before those tariffs for automakers kick in. And we know that a month is a very long time in tariff talks. Back to you.
Lindsay, thank you so much for this. We'll be following this ever-changing story very closely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's check on the commute now with CP24's traffic specialist, Adwa. We are knee-deep in rush hour, Adwa.
We are, yeah, literally. We're knee-deep in rush hour. It's very slow on all of the major area highways. But you know we're getting a lull in? We're getting a lull in the rain, but not a lull in problems, Arda. So we have these issues. They're happening on the 401 westbound on the approach to Mississauga Road in the Express. Find that HOV lane is still blocked with this ongoing collision. It's been there for a bit, so this is why you're running into that delay, more so in the Express than the collectors from about here, Ontario. Elsewhere, traveling on to the 401 eastbound, really jammed on the exit ramp that does take you to Kingston Road. Now, at the bottom of the ramp, northbound Kingston Road is blocked at the 401. That is following a pretty serious collision and getting a lot slower on the DVP, actually. Delays extend from Dundas all the way up towards the 401 in busy pockets on the Gardner. A little bit of sunshine starting to rise through here, and the clouds are parting as you exit the downtown core. A reminder, if your travels take you towards city streets, Bay still closed both ways between Davenport and Yorkville for an ongoing fire investigation. I'll send it back to you both.
Thank you, Adjoa. Well, we remain under a special weather statement because of the rain and melting snow.
Environment Canada says the frozen ground has a reduced ability to absorb all the rain, which could total between 15 and 25 millimeters through this evening. The rain is expected to change to snow tonight into tomorrow morning as the temperature falls and winds increase.
Yeah, this is a live shot of the Don River tonight. Now you're looking at images of the Humber River. That's a specific area of concern for flooding, according to the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. The river is partly ice covered. The Conservation Authority has also issued a flood outlook for the Don River and Duffins Creek watersheds. Ice jams are possible, which could lead to localized flooding in low-lying areas.
The Toronto Police Marine Unit is reminding people to keep away from ice on open bodies of water as significant rainfall moves across the province. It says all ice is unsafe, especially at this time of year. The unit is also asking parents to explain the danger to their children.
It's 5:39, 7 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
6 townhomes under construction in Yorkville have been badly damaged by a massive fire. We'll get a live update from the scene near Bay and Davenport coming up.
Welcome back. An investigation is underway after a fire destroyed 6 townhomes under construction near Bay Street and Davenport Road.
CP24 Steve Ryan joins us live from the scene on Schollard Street with the very latest. Steve, 6 townhomes in the middle of downtown Toronto, Yorkville. That means the damage is in the millions.
Yeah, there's a lot of damage financially, Arda, that is for sure. And this is one of the main reasons why I believe the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office are leading this investigation, because that is part of their mandate. Anytime there is a substantial financial loss as a result of a fire, that falls under the OFM's mandate. So you were looking east from Hazelton Avenue on Schollard Street. The fire was on the on the north side of Schollard. And this morning, fire tell us that they responded to a 3-alarm blaze at 4:30. It started at one building in particular, and it spread quickly to 5 others. Now, when you look at this area, the houses are so connected, the buildings are connected. Fire department did a fantastic job preventing any further fires from happening as a result. But 6 buildings were damaged, incredibly damaged. In fact, I would say they all need to be redone from the ground up. Cars were destroyed, 2 that were outside of this location, and it now is an active investigation being conducted by the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office, as I said. Now, earlier on, we did hear from one of the building owners, and we heard from the Deputy Fire Chief as well, and here is some of what both of them said. Let's listen.
I got a call from the alarm company around 5:30 this morning that there was a burglar alarm, and that it had been turned off, but there was a fire next door. So I tried to speak to them about what was going on, and they didn't know. So I did, they said somebody should go down. So here I am.
The 6 buildings that were involved are destroyed. There's exposures on either side, 2 or 3. That will probably have to be gutted and renovated. The ones across the street received only damage to the facades, windows and siding and that sort of thing. those can be repaired. But yeah, there's going to be a significant dollar value loss here.
Fire investigators will now determine the cause, the origin, and the circumstances surrounding this terrible place. Send it back to the desk.
All right, Steve Ryan reporting live in Yorkville this evening. Thank you for this, Steve. Well, police are investigating a pair of tow truck-related shootings.
The one shooting happened just before 10:30 last night. 2 people were shot at a tow yard on Glen Scarlett Road near Weston Road in St. Clair. They were taken to hospital with serious injuries. The suspects fled the area in a dark sedan.
An hour later, police say a tow truck driver was shot at a gas station near Warden and Lawrence. The victim was rushed to hospital with serious injuries. Police say the suspects fled the scene in a vehicle. An employee at the gas station assisted the victim.
He was washing his truck in the base, and I think they came out of nowhere, tried to attack him. When he was running, they shot him in the back. I think that happened. Yeah, there was few rounds. Luckily, he only been shot once. I asked him, who shot you? Why did they shot you? He said he don't know anything. He don't know who shot him. He don't know why he shot him.
It's unclear whether the shootings are related. Anyone with information is asked to contact police.
Well, Toronto police kicked off Fraud Prevention Month this morning by highlighting the main scams targeting residents.
Last year, nearly 17,000 fraud incidents were reported to police, working out to losses of over $368 million. But police believe fraud is vastly underreported and the real number of scams is likely 10 to 20 times higher. The most destructive scams are online investment scams, account takeovers, confidence scams, crypto fraud, and identity theft. Toronto police say anyone can be a victim of fraud.
No one is immune to being scammed. However, by staying informed and speaking up, we can all play a role in preventing fraud and protecting our communities. Our goal is always to encourage residents to recognize, reject, and report fraud. Throughout the month, we'll collaborate with our partners across government, law enforcement, and the private sector to provide Canadians with the tools, resources, and information they need to protect themselves against fraud.
Our goal is to give Canadians the tools they need to recognize, to reject, and to report fraud. Because fraudsters don't discriminate, they will target anyone, from teens to seniors, from consumers to big corporations. And this can have a long-term devastating impact on individuals, on businesses, and the economy.
The goal of Fraud Prevention Week is to promote the 3 R's: recognize scams, reject them, and report them.
It's 5:47 right now and 7 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Nearly 30,000 of the city's inside workers will go on strike Monday morning if a deal isn't reached by then. We're going to have more on that coming up with Beatrice Baseman. Welcome back. The union representing thousands of City of Toronto workers is warning its members will go on strike Monday if a deal isn't reached by then. And the city says it's already tabled its final offer.
For the latest on the negotiations, let's go live to CP24's Beatrice Baseman. This is going to affect a lot of parents and kids, Beatrice.
It will, absolutely. I was just talking to a mom here outside the Trinity Bellwoods Recreation Center who says it's going to be a scramble to find an alternative for her daughter who goes to ski camp up in Earl Bales, run by Camp TO, if there is a strike by these city workers, local 79 QP workers, 27,000 of them. They will be in strike position 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, but they're extending that deadline to Monday, 12:01 a.m. in hopes of hammering out a deal with the city. The QP local president simply saying that these workers can no longer afford to live in the city that they serve. They want better wages and they want, better treatment. They say they're not getting fair treatment either by the city. The union feeling as though the city hasn't been bargaining in good faith. The city manager, though, Paul Johnson, he sees it very differently. He says this is a good final offer. In fact, part of this offer is a wage increase, 14.65% over the course of 4 years. There's also an elimination of minimum wage for some of these workers. They can actually earn a more sustainable wage as well. But the mayor is saying she's also hopeful that a deal can be reached by the deadline. Here's more.
the City of Toronto has a choice. They can bargain in good faith and show respect for the workers who keep the city running, or they can continue their pattern of neglect, delay, and dishonesty and force a strike that will hurt us all. We are ready to work towards a fair deal. We urge the city to stay at the table and help us to get to that deal.
I've always fought for more wages for those workers because that's who I am. And I hope that 79 and the City of Toronto continue talking to each other and find a solution, because the best agreement comes through mediation, comes through a negotiation. So I do know they are continued the negotiation, and I hope for a good outcome.
So Trinity Community Rec Center, one of the various rec centers around the city that offers Camp TO programming. It was supposed to start on Monday, go through the week for March break. Some 4,800 children are registered to take part in this camp. Of course, it would be incredibly frustrating for a lot of parents if they've got to make alternate arrangements. The two sides, though, committed to bargaining right up until the deadline. By the way, other services like long-term care facilities, emergency services, warming centers, shelters, those will remain operational. Back to you.
All right. Thanks for this, Beatrice. It's 5:53, 7 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Coming up, home sales in the GTA fell by more than 25% in February compared to a year ago. We'll take a look at the latest numbers. Coming up next. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to our top story now. The latest on the trade war. Premier Doug Ford continues to make the rounds on U.S. television to argue against the Trump tariffs.
As far as I'm concerned, the tariffs are still on. We will not relent. And I apologize to the American people. It's not your fault. There's one person, again, to be blamed, and that's President Trump. But we're going to go full steam ahead, and we have to protect our families, our workers, our businesses. Everything was fine. You keep saying that, oh, they're stealing office. That's not accurate.
Again, that was Doug Ford on CNN talking about the trade war fallout, saying we will not relent.
Home sales in the GTA fell by more than 25% in February compared to a year ago.
Treb says over 4,000 homes were sold last month, down 27.4% compared to February 2024. The average selling price declined 2.2% compared with a year earlier to just under $1,085,000. More than 12,000 new properties were listed in the GTA last month, up 5.4%. Chief Market Analyst Jason Mercer joined us live this morning to talk about these latest numbers.
One of the things we found is that there was a lot of would-be home buyers, people that have every intention on purchasing a home this year or in the years ahead. We're saying, look, we still need to see some relief on the interest rate front. Maybe it's 100, maybe it's 200 basis points, but we're not there yet. So that's point number one, that as we get towards the end of the spring, we're going to see a more affordable situation just in terms of borrowing costs. But then number two, there's been a lot more economic uncertainty, obviously, over the last couple of months. I mean, today we're talking about tariffs actually imposed, but we're also talking about the potential for a deal. And so people don't really know what's going on. And if you're thinking about having to make a large ticket purchase and be able to cover those mortgage payments over the long term, you want to have some certainty in terms of your labor situation, your income situation, what have you.
Mercer says first-time buyers have a lot of choice right now, especially if they're looking for a condo due to high inventory and lower borrowing costs.
Well, Canadian electronic producer Deadmau5 is taking the cheese.
The music producer, known for wearing a mouse head helmet on stage, has sold his song catalog and record label Mousetrap in a deal valued at $55 million. I guess he can retire. The buyer says it plans to remaster and re-release key catalog pieces and seek new marketing opportunities.
It's 5:58 now, 7 degrees. You're watching Toronto's breaking news, CP24. We'll leave you with a live look of the Don River tonight. A special weather statement is in effect, and Environment Canada has just issued a winter weather travel advisory for tomorrow morning's commute. So there's a lot to talk about weather-wise. You're going to want to keep that rain gear nice and close. Thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is coming up next.